So I was really thinking of the Torah portion, Ve'era, and the week before that, Shmos. So we had these portions of the enslavement, right? Starting again 2 weeks ago with a portion of Shmos, which we, for some reason, call Exodus. Of course, that's not the translation of the word at all. But that speaks of, as we mentioned, I believe last week, how stuck the Jews were, how bad the enslavement was. We said it was the last 116 years of the 210 years in Egypt, and it was getting worse and worse and worse and worse until the very end, like the crescendo is where Pharaoh is saying, forget straw, you're so lazy. What am I giving you the supplies to make bricks? Go find the straw and make the bricks, and, don't you dare produce less bricks than when we gave you that straw. I don't know why we gave you the straw, like what audacity here. And it was so difficult that when Moses came and said the good news, God himself came and told him, it's all going to turn around and redemption. They couldn't hear a word. They were so stuck. And then God started the plagues to shatter, to smash the power of Egypt, which of course we said is also personally inside ourselves, to smash it, to destroy Egypt's resistance to God, that Egypt would recognize God, that Egypt would recognize God's powers in the world, that Egypt would allow the Jews to leave. At least, of course, this also all mirrors our own service. And like the first plague, which is very significant, the first one is taking that cold water of the Nile and transforming it into blood, into something warm, into something alive. Because we said when we're stuck, we're cold. And we need to turn ourselves around and get alive. And then we had some plagues in Shmos, the era, plague after plague after plague after plague. This is very exciting. From the first plague, the Jews are free, the Jews are rich, and they watch for the next 9 months the destruction of Egypt. And finally, in this Torah portion, we have the complete freedom of the Jews. So this is really the portion where we escaped Egypt. We are free. Now, living with the times, I was thinking today, now is high time, high energy for us to get out of Egypt. And we discussed this concept before, though I think it's been quite a while. But there was a point when we were very much focusing on it. The Mishnah, the sages say, that in every generation we have to envision ourselves leaving Egypt. And the first leader of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, in the Tanya that we studied many years ago, says that we actually have to experience this Exodus every single day. And what are we talking about experiencing the Exodus every single day? That we are stuck. We're in Egypt. The Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim. That's how in Hebrew, even till today, you say Egypt. And Mitzrayim, the etymology of Mitzrayim is Meitzarim. Meitzarim means limitations, boundaries. So when we say we're in Egypt, it means we're enslaved, like the Jews in Egypt, our ancestors were enslaved. We're enslaved, we're stuck within boundaries. They could be made by me, they could be made by forces outside of me, they could be made by people outside of me. Or again, I can fabricate them myself. I could chain and imprison myself. But the Meitzarim, the boundaries, limitation, the imprisonment, the shackles of Egypt, that's what's enslaving every single one of us. And the Alter Rebbe is saying, every single day, we have to leave Egypt. Now that is true, as the Alter Rebbe is saying, every single day. But sometimes of the year, it's more auspicious to be able to escape some of the Egypt. Obviously, a very auspicious time is Passover. And really the entire month, the Jewish month of Passover, is a very, very auspicious time to escape Egypt. Don't worry, in case you're suddenly thinking, oh my gosh, she didn't buy my matzah. What is she talking about? We are not near Passover now, right? We've got 2.5 months or so away, Got a few weeks. But now is when it's in the Torah portion. The Torah portions read last week in synagogue, the week before in synagogue, this week in synagogue, next week in synagogue. The Torah portions are living this story. And the same Alter Rebbe that wrote in the Tanya that we have to leave Egypt every day, he also said, he gave a very mysterious injunction to his followers. He said, we have to live with the times. And that was like a very hard thing for them to understand. What does it mean, live with the times? I mean, we're not supposed to be like modern, whatever modern meant in the 1700s. We're not supposed to dress modern. We're not supposed to be engaged in the current, cutting edge. What does it mean, live with the times? And eventually they understood that live with the times means the Torah times, the portion of the week. Whatever the portion of the week is, that's the times. That's the energy in the world. So yes, God willing, in 3 some months, Passover is a wonderful time to plan your Exodus. But right now is also a very good time to plan your Exodus. This week is an amazing time to plan your Exodus. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Miriam, is that you with the iPhone and the hand raised? Someone has iPhone and hand raised. I thought it was Miriam. It might not be. Oh, now it says Miriam. Yes, Miriam.
Yeah, I just accidentally logged off and now came back. So that's all. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So what does this mean, Exodus? What does this mean to get out of our Egypt? Now, again, we have discussed this before, but it's a while ago. Basically, we want to look at those things that limit us, that make us small, and we want to change it. Now, we could say change. I mean, I've developed so much. I've worked so much. I'm at such an age in my life. Change. What are you talking about? Change. Every day, change. So it's interesting because Lubavitcher Rebbe once said about himself that every day, Lubavitcher Rebbe is talking, he's not exaggerating. He actually means it literally. He said every day he makes a resolution and every day he makes sure to fulfill it. Now, here's Lubavitcher Rebbe. I mean, what could he be resolving? Like, what doesn't he do? What's left in the horizons and the vistas that he has to conquer? I didn't ask. I don't think anyone asked what those resolutions are. But every day he demands something from himself that he didn't demand before. I think if he can think of something, we all don't have to probe too deeply to think of what's imprisoning us. So anyone here remember a time when they did this, when they worked? And again, we've discussed in the class, we discussed it years ago when we studied it in Tanya. I remember we discussed it at length, week after week after week. We were very, very focused on it. We probably discussed it several times over Passover seasons. Anyone can remember a time when she really resolved on an Egypt, she was leaving, and she left? Anyone can share a success story? Miriam, is your hand raised to share a success story? I know your hand was raised and then you said you just came back. Is it raised now deliberately?
Not deliberately, but I could share something, I think. I came to this country like everybody else with very, very limited English, and somehow just learned and then went to work and etc. Did a lot of things. But I always thought that I can't do more. I wanted to do something else I had one career, but I want to have another career. And I thought I cannot do it. I know my limits, that's all. And when I was 49, I drastically changed my career. And I was thinking now back, how did I do it? So I tried, it's like, unless you try, you don't know what you can do. I left, I would say, and I remember one time I spoke to one man. He was, I don't think he was a rabbi, but he was very, very observant and with big wisdom. And I shared this, like, I don't know, how can I do it? That's me. And he says, this is your Egypt. And this literally, he said, this is your Egypt. Just get out from there.
Wow.
And it's not that the next day I got out. No, it probably another year went by. But then I was at 49 when I drastically changed everything, career. And now looking back, I think that, yeah, I tried and I did. So it's
That's
possible.
beautiful. That's
It's
brave.
possible.
That's brave. And it's definitely in Egypt because I'm sure if you left your career, there were some things in the career that were limiting you, that were stifling you, that you felt you had to leave. You didn't leave. It was all great and wonderful. And you said, let me try something new. No, I'm sure there were some Egypts there that
it was very right. It was very hard. And again, but it's only because somebody kind of like planted the seed in my head. Yeah, it's planted the seed that you can do it and just get out. Enough, be stuck.
That's beautiful.
So,
and I think what Miriam's saying, because I wanted to sort of not only hear the success stories, but hear the how of the success story. So Miriam's how is she was encouraged by someone who said, you can do it. Yes, you're 49. Yes, you could say, oh my gosh, now I'm going to change it. I'm going to be a newbie when I'm in my 50s. Someone said, you could do it. Don't stay stuck. Push yourself, get out. And it took her a year. Notice it took her a year from those
And
words till she fulfilled the words. But she still remembered
something,
the words a year later.
another thing. So that you just said about somebody. I didn't mean to bring this as a point, but as you said, somebody. Yeah, there are a couple people. So another person said to me, I said, "Well, how can I go? I will be studying in school. I'm 49." And the lady said, "But anyway, you're getting old. So while you're getting old, you'll be studying. What's anyway, you're gonna get old." So it was another person. So it's like there's few people, planted seeds. So yes, you always need somebody who would either smash you in the face, it's a worse scenario, or just pushing you nicely, like gently. So
And
for
also
me, it was gentle.
giving you this vision that yes, you can change, and yes, you're older, but you'll have the whole life. Once you work hard, you'll have a whole life ahead of you. I remember very clearly. I'm probably shared this at one point. My mother, I don't know how old she was. Maybe she was like 40 or something, and she got braces. Maybe she was 30. I think maybe she was 38, 39. She got braces. And I mean, I remember I was obviously a child, but I remember like people saying like, at your age, you're getting braces. And she said, so when I'm 40, I'll have straight teeth. And of course, now she's 80 and she still has her straight teeth. So, yes, we could all feel at this point in my life, I'm going to change. I've been stuck like this my whole life. Now I can change. Almost like if I put all this effort in, I should have put in the effort before. Why am I wasting the effort now when I don't have as much time left? No, we can never look like that. We all have to understand maybe now is a time, and maybe when we were 25, we couldn't do it. Maybe we didn't have the resources. Maybe we didn't have the stamina. Maybe we didn't have the support system. Maybe we didn't have the belief in ourselves. It would have been nice if we could have done it when we were 25. But if we're doing it when we're 50 or 60, thank God we're doing it. And then we have the rest of our life to reap the benefits of the freedom. Anyone else? Anyone else can share an Egypt they got out of? Or if you don't want to tell the details, you could just raise your hand that yes, you've done it too.
Yes, I can share.
Minucha,
For-
sure. Let's hear.
Yeah, for me, leaving Egypt is leaving my fears, insecurities, low self-esteem. And I had many ideas, but I think that's the most important for me. So, I mean, I left many Egypt, but that's the most
How did you do it?
Just trusting Hashem that He takes care of me. And the idea from your early classes that I'm an only child of Hashem, and I'm a princess or I'm a queen. So those ideas, and that Hashem will always take the best care of me.
So when you were thinking those thoughts, you were thinking those thoughts to combat directly the fears. Fears, the insecurities, the lack of self-worth. Lack of self-worth, I'm God's princess. Lack of self-worth, I'm God's only child. Fear, God's holding my hand. God's holding me.
Yeah.
So you took the concepts you knew, many of which we talk about in this class, and you used them as the force to change.
Also, yeah, like everything in God's hands. So there shouldn't be any fears,
Right.
because yes, God has script for me, and I can't do anything wrong by just being fearful or not sure of what I'm doing. And so that's how I got rid of it. Not
That's beautiful.
completely,
So
but
this is a beautiful point that
Yeah.
Minucha is saying. She literally took Torah. She took godliness. And the information of godliness she used to combat her Egypt. The information, what she knew, and she knew this because we've spoken about it and spoken about it and spoken about it. So she didn't just know it in some theoretical, abstract way. It was very deep in her, this knowledge, and she held up that knowledge as a light to the darkness of her fears, of her insecurities, of the lack of self-worth. And she's like, this is light and this is darkness. Why am I letting this darkness exist? This is the light. Now, to do that, now I'm actually trying to get out of a certain Egypt myself, a different one, but I'm also trying to constantly go back to the godly truth. You have to be very focused. So if Menucha did it and accomplished it, and obviously she didn't do it when she was 25, and obviously you're changing a lifetime of unhealthy bad habits, you have to constantly reinforce and remember and remind yourself and stop yourself when you're going back in the wrong direction and keep
Yes.
reminding yourself of the light and keep holding on to that light to get out of that Egypt, to get out of that darkness. It's amazing, Menucha. Wow, it's beautiful. Rachel, what were you going to say?
I just wanted to say that I had that too. Very similar to what Manucha said, maybe slightly different point. I also worked a lot on my character traits, and a lot of it we talked in class about, and I was listening to lectures. It was more like relationships with other people, and I feel mostly that I almost came out of my Egypt.
That's beautiful.
It feels so much better, but it took some time, of course.
Yes, it could take years. Some things, it's interesting, and I've seen this with myself in ways I've worked on myself, and I got a lot of Egypts to get out of. I've gotten out of a lot, and I have a lot more to go. And some things are so fast, and it's almost like surprising to me because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a big, hard Egypt to get out of. And actually, it was very fast. And then other things, like what I'm currently working on, takes years. Maybe it takes years because, and I keep thinking this about myself, maybe this is one of the reasons why my soul is in this world. Like certain things are our lifetime challenges. Certain, like Rachel's saying, certain character traits, certain parts of our personality. It's us. And even as we try working on it, it keeps coming back, obviously in a more refined way. But it keeps coming back. It could be, as Menucha said, insecurity. It could be many other things. Rachel's saying relationships. There's so many pieces of us. It could be anger. It could be judgmental. It could be being a gold digger. It could be being egotistical. I mean, lots of colors and flavors of our problems. And some of them are more superficial, and we could really, like Menucha said, take that light of truth, and it shines and dispels the darkness. And some of them are really deeply embedded in us. And we work, and we're going to get out. I love what Rachel said, that she's almost all the way out. I love that, because that resonates a lot. That yes, it could be a process. It could be a journey of years. It's a worthwhile journey. Rachel said that also. It feels really good to get out. It feels really, really, really good. It's worth the trek. It's worth the work. It's sometimes very hard, self-worth, self-work, self-change. But again, just like my mother said, so she'll be 40 and she'll have straight teeth, So whatever age you'll be there, you're free. And every time you get a little freer, it's worth celebrating, because it's self that we're working on. That's like really hard to change, but really possible. That was what Miriam said really helped her. That it's possible. Leah, are you going to add something?
Yes, I would like to say that for me, it was literally when we passed control of Moscow airport, and we even wasn't on the plane, but we're behind of this people who check our things, and we look at each other and said, we're free. And it was amazing. It was 35 years ago, but I remember this spot like it was yesterday, that
Wow.
we're free. It's over.
Wow.
And our family was behind, but this feeling was unbelievable.
You're saying you got out, but some people in your family didn't get out.
Yeah, our family left because only three of us, me, my husband, and child, my son, 2 years old. But our parents, siblings, they all stayed there. We didn't know that in a few years, we're gonna be united, but this feeling that it's over, this we get out from this country, it was amazing feeling.
Wow.
Yeah,
I can
me
feel it
too.
when you're saying it. When you're saying it, I can feel it. Wow.
Me too. In
You had that
Tbilisi,
feeling,
it's
Bella, like,
terrible.
whoa, we're out. We're free.
I just see that picture in front of me, like it was yesterday.
I'm sure many of you here, this totally resonates. You experienced it. You got out of a horrible Egypt that trapped millions of us.
Yeah.
You got out.
Yeah.
And you're saying in a few years your family also got out.
Yeah, and our family came, and thanks God, it's because they lived here, they had a long life. So just because they lived here, so
Thank God they had access to much better health care and support. And
the poor, yeah.
thank God. Thank God.
So,
Thank God. I think it's a beautiful thing, Leah is saying, because first of all, it's exhilarating. It's like so emotional,
yeah,
so real. You all went through it, besides me, and you know how good it felt. Wow.
yeah.
And life continued, and it wasn't like, it was a bed of roses coming to America. For sure.
Yeah, we didn't know what to expect, but because it was so nasty to pest control and all this, and finally it all was over. It was just amazing feeling of a freedom, and that
Maybe there was that fear they're not going to let you out. They're not going to let you out. So like when you actually got out,
the way how they treat you at the border and how they go through your personal stuff, and it's so nasty, and
like you're the criminal.
yeah, they rob you. You're nobody. You don't have rights. You better keep your mouth shut and just obey.
Okay, and just pray
Just
and get out.
obey and don't say a word. My husband told me, be silent, be silent.
Don't start up. Don't open your mouth. Whatever they do, just let them do it and get out.
Yeah,
That's yeah. And you got out, and thank God. And I think that's such a beautiful model of like, obviously in a different way, but like what we feel when we can do like there's the external and there's the inner. And when it's as dramatic, the external, like Leigh experienced, and like looking at this class, everyone here but me experienced, you all experienced it. And maybe your experiences were slightly different because maybe the Egypt was a little easier. I mean, I don't know if anyone had it easier in Russia, but I'm sure there were levels. I can hear the emotion when Leigh is saying it. That the maybe some of you have more confidence and it was simpler, and maybe it was some of you was much harder, but you know what it feels like. You know what it feels like to get out of Egypt. You
yeah,
know because you did. And taking
yeah,
that vision and saying, "Well, I can do the work." And now, thank God, like I said, it's been in America 35 years, but you can still keep moving. And there's different vistas. There's inner changes, and just knowing that idea of liberation, keep moving and keep tasting it. When we have something very strong that we tasted, we can still keep going with that taste and keep going with that memory. This is what freedom feels like. And again, as I'm saying, who knows what's going to be? Who knows how we're going to survive? Who, like Miriam said, do you have English when you come here? Do you have a career when you come here? What are you leaving? Where are you going to? But you know what? Freedom is still freedom.
exactly.
And that's
Yeah. 21st of January was 30 years since I came here. And I also was feeling so free when I left Tbilisi, Georgia, Moscow, and then came here. I was feeling so good and free. I don't know, it was amazing feelings, yes.
30 years ago, and you also remember it very, very vividly.
21st of January was
21st of January. Oh my gosh, it just was. Happy anniversary.
Yeah, I know, I'm telling you, yeah. And so many things happened during and after in these 30 years.
But that doesn't dim the memory. The memory is still very, very strong.
Yeah.
Very powerful and very liberating.
Yeah.
Very liberating. Amazing. Amazing. And when I can think of some of the very different style Egypts I've left, it also feels very liberating. But you guys all know how to do it. You all did it. There's the external, there's the inner. We're part of a nation that has left Egypt and continues. And historically, we've had many Egypts that have oppressed us. And we keep escaping and we keep rising and we keep surviving. We're a very strong people. Very strong, very resilient, very tough, with a lot of belief that keeps us going, a lot of optimism. There has to be, I think, a lot of optimism. Like, as Miriam touched on, Leigh and Bella, you're leaving, you have to have optimism, belief in yourself, belief in God, belief in a better future. Otherwise, you stay stuck in Egypt. The unknown is terrifying. You can say, well, no, this is so bad. Anything could be better. Nah. I think there has to be a certain innate resilience and optimism and belief in yourself and belief in God that allows you to go for something better. And I think all of those traits are also true when you're working on yourself, going back to like what Miriam said. Here she is, whatever, 49, and she's going to start a new career. And is she going to make it? And how is she going to survive when she's working? And when she's going to school and she's just starting her job? And will she get a job? Da, 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 da. And you have to have that same like belief and optimism and confidence and connection to God and trust and looking forward to something better. And you're worth the work. You're worth the work. You're worth changing. So I think what I loved about everybody sharing was sort of from different angles, not only the fact that it happens, but how it happened. I think the how is important because I want to get out. I want to keep getting out. And I think as we think of how we've done it, then we can move forward and continue. Anyone else has an Egypt they've escaped that they'd like to share? Rivka?
I had a short one. One of them. I had a worry, a specific worry, and especially when I would go in the car and drive, this thought would come, and I would just, oh, this would happen, and then this was happen, and it was a very familiar road for me of anxiety and worry. And we had some classes about that, and I started working on it. So I would start thinking about it, and then I would catch myself. And I would start correcting myself and thinking it over that Hashem would not allow this to happen, and thinking about all the right things. And I would redirect my familiar train of thought into positive. And each time this would come, I would catch myself and redirect it. And finally, I don't have this train of thought anymore about this particular word.
That's amazing. How long did that take? Do you remember? A few months?
Yeah, a few months.
Wow. I think what Rivka's saying is a very important point. First of all, what she's saying, which is true, which I think we, of course, all realize, of course, depending on what Egypt you're getting out of, some are sort of concrete. You make a decision, you made that decision, you're out. And many are a journey, many are a process. And she's really describing how she did it. So like Menucha, and like what Rachel said, she had a truth, a godly truth, a Torah truth that was her guide, that was the truth, that was the light, as versus the Egypt, the darkness of her thoughts and worries and fears. But she would go on that road of thoughts and worries and fears because those are the familiar roads. We go on our familiar roads. But then she caught herself and she redirected herself. Like, off that road, we don't do that road anymore. We don't think that thought anymore. Forbidden, stop, barriers, don't go there, not allowed, get off. And then a few minutes later, or a day later, an hour later, she'd be back on that road. She caught herself and she did it again. And she would do it again. And she would do it again until the road becomes decrepit, broken down. Not a road in her mind, not a smooth track, not even a track. It doesn't even exist. That, to me, what Rivka's describing is really, like for a lot of the Egypts I've tried to get out of, exactly that concept. You know the truth, and you have to keep catching yourself because the other paths are more comfortable, they're more familiar, they're more natural. They're not healthy, they're not good for us. They don't feel good. Why do we do things that don't feel good? I don't know, because we're used to them. They must feed us in some way, right? But they're very comfortable. They're very our norm. It's how we think. It's how we behave. It's how we act. And so Rivka's giving a lot of success stories because she right away caught herself and changed. Sometimes after the fact, you realize, oh, I was on that wrong road. Oh, I didn't catch myself. Oh, that was not what I want to be doing. That's good too. It's another piece of self-awareness. It's another piece of like, okay, I thought I got out of a little bit of that Egypt. I guess it's still inside of me. Let me work harder. Let me be more focused. I have to have, again, that trust. Like I was saying, when Leigh was talking about leaving Russia, you have to have a certain trust, a certain belief in self, in God, in a better future to do it. It's a very huge jump. I don't have to tell you. And how are you going to survive? And how are you going to work? And you don't speak the language, and you don't have relatives. And where are you going to live? It's a lot of trusting and believing and going for something better. So in ourselves also, we have to have that vision that, yeah, I can change. I'm going to change. It might take me a while. It will happen. I'm going to keep working at it. It will happen. There'll be a time when it's completely history, when it has no grip on me. Rivka's saying it doesn't have any grip on her now. That's a beautiful success story. No grip. Maybe other things have a grip, but that thing doesn't even exist. And it's beautiful when we can look and see that. So anyone have, you could just by virtual raise of hand, can think of an Egypt, because again, as I said in the beginning, we're discussing this now because this is literally the Torah portions. This Torah portion that will be read this Saturday in synagogue, this is the portion of Exodus. So it's the time, living with the times. The energy is now. This is a great time to get out. You did it 35 years ago. You did it 30 years ago. You did it last week. You could do it now. So if all of us could sort of envision, again, if you don't have any, that's fine too. But try to, if you have some Egypt you'd like to get out of, you can think of one and then just like sort of raise your virtual hand that you have something in mind, some Egypt you would like to get out of. I know exactly the one I want to get out of because I've been working on it already for a few days very strongly. So Menucha, Chava, Rachel, who else? Rivka. Who else can think of a limitation they would like to leave? Do not fear. I'm not going to ask you what it is. To be on board, to know we're all working together. This is the time. This is a Torah portion. It's liberating. It's exhilarating. It gives tremendous joy. Freedom is unbelievable. And again, we can be free. We're not stuck. That's a very important message that we're trying to say here. It's not like, this is me. Vega has one. I think I shared with you Dr. Feuerstein. He wrote a book, one of his many books on, helping special needs children or things along those lines. And he wrote, "If you love me, don't accept me as I am." That was the title of his book. I think it's a very powerful concept. We love ourselves. We don't have to accept ourselves as we are. We love ourselves so we can believe in change. We could believe that we could be different. We have Menucha and Chava and Rachel and Rivka and Vega. Anyone else that could sort of articulate for themselves a limitation they would like to leave and they can believe they will leave. Could be one you've worked on before and you're in the process, or it could be
For me, it's not to be afraid of the future, not to be so concerned, and in some sense, to be free of that, worries.
it's real. It's fear. As Menucha was speaking of fear, it's a fear, and many people have that fear now with everything going on in the world. What type of world is going to be? What type of world are we having now? So,
Especially things which are out of your control,
right.
That is kind
Because
of
we do have an
because
illusion of control.
yeah,
It's very illusionary, but we do have an illusion of control.
yeah.
Things that we can't
Well,
even pretend we control.
we think
They're
yes, we have
terrifying.
control, but
Yes,
this is a feeling, and
absolutely.
I would, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Bella said yes also. Okay. Okay. So I want to share a few tips. I think lots of great ideas were shared already. I mean, every person who shared her story shared some type of vision, some type of tip of how she did it. And then maybe after I share a few tips, maybe other people, based on their experiences, could share other things that have worked for them, that it feels practical. It's not just like wishful thinking, like Leia's saying, yeah, it'd be so nice to not have fear over the future, but oh well, like how do you ever accomplish that? So definitely people sharing how they got out of their Egypt. I think there were definitely tips there. There was definitely practical things that, that we could reflect on. What else? I think one point that's very important, beyond Menucha and Rachel and Rivka, all spoke of how they thought of ideas they had learned, some in this class, some in other places, truth, God's truth, Torah truth. And they held that light up of God's truth to the darkness, to the Egypt that was shackling them. And they kept contrasting the prison to the truth and saying, no, we don't accept this. This is true. This is real. That's garbage. That's Egypt. That's subjugation. That's enslavement. Just like Leah is saying now, not to fear the future, to take the ideas of trust, of God's reality, of all being in God's hand, and to take every fear when it comes up and hold it up against that truth. But additionally, beyond that, I think something also important to do, especially if this is a more challenging Egypt to get out of, which I imagine it is, because at our point in life, if it was simple, you'd think we'd have done it by now, is also to turn to God with a heartfelt request to help. Everything works better when it's flavored with nullification to God. Nullification is the strongest magnet for God's presence. When I'm nullified, God is found. And when I'm not nullified, even though there's a lot of good details lined up, it probably still won't work because he's not within it. So beyond any tip and idea and strategy, practical, spiritual, whatever works, using other people's experience, doing things that have worked for you, I think it's very important to bring God in, literally asking him to help, asking for his help, asking him to be part of this journey. So that's one thing that I think is very important. And I'm really, of course, talking to myself throughout this entire night because I definitely have an Egypt I'm trying to get out of. And I definitely want to make sure I bring God in, that it works. Another point, a second point that I think is important, which we sort of touched on, but not precisely, is having joy in the process. Now you could say joy in the process, it's hard work. It is hard work. But there's also joy in the process, even though it's hard. Joy in the certainty of achieving your goal. Joy in trust that you're going to achieve your goal. This circles back to trusting in God and having God as part of your process. It's going to work. I know it's going to work. I know God is part of this work. And as I trust in God, as I am confident in God, it's exciting. It's exciting to know I can change. It's exciting to know I'm going to change. It's exciting good news. This is very exciting news. And we heard so many success stories tonight, right? We heard so many success stories, and success stories are great because they make it real. Like, yeah, these are real people. You know them. They're your friends, okay? Very normal people, very regular people. So when they're saying they did it, it's doable. You could spend a lifetime in fear and get out. You could spend a lifetime in insecurity and get out. And Abby feels better to be secure than insecure. It feels better to be fearless than fearful. It feels better to be worry-free than worried. Or any other issue. I mean, there's, as I said, many colors and flavors of Egypt. But having that joy in the process, joy that it's going to work. Joy in the process also is like celebrating the little steps. I almost did that and I stopped myself. Okay, maybe I did it 50% before I stopped myself. Maybe I did it 80% before I stopped myself. But I did stop myself. Or I did it, but then I didn't continue it. That's also an achievement. Celebrating the achievement. Celebrating the baby steps of achievement. I was getting very fearful and I indulged in it a while and then I stopped. That's amazing. You could have not stopped. It could have gotten worse. So joy in the process, joy in the even very small achievements, and joy because you have certainty, you have trust in God, it's going to happen. Mm. The third point I wanted to share, which might or might not work for you, but I think it helps, is as you're doing this work, I think it's a nice idea to journal about it. Meaning the idea of a journal is reflection. Reflect on your successes, on your not obvious successes. It keeps you focused. It keeps you reflective. You could see how you could do it better, how you could do it deeper. It's like a really great forum to talk to yourself and a great forum to see, because sometimes change is so small. It's so incrementally small. A little shift, a little shift, a little shift, that by the time it happens, you sort of like almost don't realize how it happened, or almost forgot you were working on it happening. You know, it could be something in our own lives that we achieve, and like we worked on it, and somehow it happened and we don't even exactly remember how, it just like, I don't know, sort of morphed along. And a lot of our self-work is like that. So it's nice to be a little more focused, a little more reflective, a little more proactively monitoring your progress. And I think it helps the work because it keeps you focused. Going back to like what Rivka was saying, you have the healthy version, you have your unhealthy Egypt version. And you're constantly like monitoring yourself to like, no, we don't do that anymore. We don't think that anymore. We don't say that anymore. We don't respond that way anymore. We're not reactive like that anymore. Like, it's hard because this is me. It's been me for many years. So any tool I have to reinforce the new me, the free me. Anyone else? Any other ideas or tips or things that have worked for you that you haven't shared yet?
One more thing I just wanted to share that for Rosh Hashanah, I write to myself what I want to do, kind of like a New Year resolution. And I try to be very careful and take like small things that I can commit to, like very, very like small. And then it kind of like when I look at it, I don't know, later, like almost in a year, I don't remember, many times I don't remember that was like my resolution. It's like became part of my life. And like, how to say, I don't even like acknowledge that it's a growth that I grew, right? And when I look at those notes, I'm like, oh, wow. So that was something else I did that I haven't done before. And I think like those notes helps me to see that I'm growing, that I'm on a path, and it helps. I
That's
guess
a
gives me.
beautiful point because
Yeah.
we do have, we sometimes do have this sense of self-doubting ourselves, not believing in ourselves, not seeing our beauty. And our growth is a very big part of our beauty. And when oh, really? I used to do that? I changed? Sort of reminds me of someone that said to me once, like, we should write down everything we pray for because what happens is God gives it. But by then we're on to the next thing. So we're always praying, we're always asking. We sometimes lose track that God is giving, He is responding. And that's why it's good to be able to like check and say, oh yeah, that was a big worry, that was a big concern, that was a fear, that was a request. And guess what? It got answered. Guess what? I have a few more now. That's true too. But that one did get answered, and that one got answered, and that one got answered. Life is shifting in a positive way. God is coming through, and as Chava was saying, I'm working, and you know what? I'm changing. I totally agree. Very important. Anyone else? Any other tips or things that have worked for you that you feel will be beneficial for someone else to know? Something I do, I mean, again, this, I don't know if it would work for other people. This is just how I operate, is I write it down. I always have a paper, my like list of the day, and I always write it on the paper, and I always review it. Like I'm constantly like, it just, it's physical. I wrote it, I think about it, I read the words, I remind myself of the words. Sometimes I read the words again, I read the words again. I just try to keep that. I shouldn't lose focus. I think when we're focused, and then, again, we're holding up that truth of our goal to the Egypt of our behaviors, we could keep realigning it. The problem is when we forget. The problem also is sometimes these things are very insidious, very subtle. But again, the more we're focused on the goal, the more we catch even the subtle breaches in our commitment. So for me, it works. Again, I don't know if it worked for anyone else. For me, it is very important to have it written down and to keep cross-checking that what I wrote, what I'm doing.
In fact, it reportedly stopped traffic.
Anyone else? Anything else someone could share? Someone like? Okay, well, I think it would be nice because this is a group. It's not a virtual group, it's a real group. We're virtually together, but it's a real group. And love between people is a very strong catalyst for bringing God in. As we said, nullifying ourselves is a strong catalyst for bringing God in. Loving each other is a strong catalyst for bringing God's in. So I thought we could conclude, because about half of us said they figured out in Egypt they'd like to get out of, and hopefully the other half are working on it and will also have something they're getting out of. So if we could just all bless each other, that each one of us should get out of our Egypt. And if you could look at the list of participants to know who's here, or however it's set up on your screen, maybe you see people's faces or names. You could scroll through all the little, thumbnails to know who you're blessing. So for each one of us, to bless each one of us sincerely with all of our heart, to bless, wish good for each other, and really bless that each one of us should have such a successful freedom and liberation and exodus. And that's a super powerful force. When we're loving each other, when we're united, God just says, I want to be there too. That's what we say. We actually say this in our prayers. We say in the Hebrew, it's Barcheinu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echa Bor Panecha. Bless us, our Father. We are all one in the light of your face. In light of your face in your inner dimension. When we're all one, God's blessings flow. So I'm looking at all the names. I see them on my screen. And if we could just look and see who's here and send sincere, heartfelt blessings for each person, that each one of us should have such success, such escape, such freedom, such liberation. Each one of us should get out of whatever Egypt is bothering us so much. We should be able to have so many more success stories, so many liberations. It's so possible now. I can't wait to hear everyone sharing this good news.